Hi, welcome to the Armed Guardian Podcast, Season 1, Episode 6. I'm your host, Brian, and today we'll be speaking with Sarah Albrecht from Hold My Guns. We'll find out what Hold My Guns is doing for the 2A community, so sit back, enjoy, and listen to today's episode. Hi, welcome to the Armed Guardian Podcast. Today we have Sarah Albrecht with us from Hold My Guns. She's going to discuss a few things about her organization, what they do, and how people can support and get involved with them. How are you doing today, Sarah?
Thanks, Brian. I'm doing really well. It's fun to be on your podcast today.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I was really glad to be able to hook up with you. As we spoke in the pre-show, had Michael Sedini, who's from Walk the Talk America, and mental health, firearms, always been something that's been passionate to me. Having been in law enforcement and in the military, I know that PTSD and people go through things, and it can affect everybody differently. So I wanted to bring to light this subject of mental health, firearms, and safe storage, and kind of incorporate it in this podcast. I do it in my training, and I thought that you'd be a perfect guest, and I'm thankful for Trampus Swanson for connecting us.
Yes, Trampus is wonderful, and for anyone out there, check out his Armed Lifestyle magazine. It's really wonderful, and I always look forward to each issue for that. And anyone in the firearms community, check it out. It's cool. Yeah. Trampus is great.
Yeah, he is. We're going to have him on as a guest for probably a couple topics, and one of the first ones I'm going to talk to him about is that Armed Lifestyle magazine, because I really like that. Even though it is, I sometimes have an issue with the online readers and stuff, trying to zoom it out and zoom it in and stuff. But I really like his magazine, the content that he has. And then I'm going to have Candace on for Girl and a Gun. And
awesome. Wow. See, you've got, we again, like we were talking about in the pre-show, we're just blessed with wonderful people in our community who actually care. And that's why I love what we're doing with Hold My Guns. And I'm excited to share about that today. But really, it is about our community and ways that we can help people to connect. So, I'm excited for you. I'm looking forward to those episodes. So I'll be watching out for them.
All right. That sounds great. I appreciate the support on this end also.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about Sarah Albrecht. Who is Sarah?
Well, thank you. My name is Sarah Joy Albrecht. Joy is my middle name. My mother calls me by my whole name, but a lot of my friends do too. And I think that's kind of endearing because in my heart, I am joyful. I love the Lord. I've been married to my husband, Tom, for 24 years. We were both homeschooled, and we homeschooled our 5 kids together. And I can't really call them kids anymore because they're 22 down to 17, and there are no twins in there. But we have really enjoyed life, and just we've had a lot of ups and downs in life. But at the same time, we just appreciate God's faithfulness and the people that He's brought into our lives that have come alongside and encouraged us. And we have always been a family that kind of helps to support people in need. And we're the house that gets all of the neighborhood kids that need a place to come by and have a snack and a hug and that kind of a thing. So we've really just grown up kind of together, which happens when you get married young and have kids young, in a way that has just been kind of our heart to care about people. So I think that naturally it kind of lends itself to Hold My Guns, and I'll share about that a little bit more. But before I do that, another aspect of my life that I really value is that my dad is a Marine Corps veteran and he served in Vietnam. And so I have a heart for veterans. I have many family members who served in wartime and in peacetime. And so we have a rich family heritage of just having a love for our country and a heart for service. And so I have just a deep respect for our veterans and on the topic of suicide prevention, I always say that treating veterans with respect is suicide prevention. And so I'm always mindful of the messaging that we send out that, whether it's talking about veterans, I always want to make sure that we're respectful. And when we're talking about people who might be in crisis, I always think about just that they are people and we love them, and that any of us can go through a really hard time in life. And so, whether it's losing a loved one or going through a terrible accident or something like that, that can really throw quite a curveball. The reality is that any of us could be in that situation. And so we just approach this with humility and genuine compassion. We have compassion as a word on our logo. Is kind of like a guide word. And a little bit more about me. It's kind of funny. I actually have my doula mug. There you go. The filter. Doula is my superpower. That was a gift from one of my clients. I was a doula and childbirth educator for 11 years. And I specialized in helping clients who had experienced sexual trauma in the past, which, if anyone is a parent or knows someone that is a parent and knows someone that especially has been through some hard times, it can be a very personal, difficult, challenging thing to go through pregnancy and postpartum and becoming a parent. And so it's just always my heart to help women who have been through a lot. And I wanted to give them a healing experience where they could really thrive. And so I love that job. And I guess kind of leads me to Hold My Guns. And I wasn't setting out to really start anything, but we lost an 18-year-old friend to suicide by firearm. And something I forgot to share was that I'm also a range safety officer, and I have kids that grew up in shooting sports. And so they really love liberty and they love shooting. And they came to me and they said, we love these things, but our friend is dead. And how do we help people in our community who might be silently struggling with things and need a place to store firearms? Get the guns out of the house, Mom. How do we do that without being gun grabbers? And I thought about it really hard, and I was like, you know what, we can solve this. Let's work on this. And we prayed about it and sought out one of the best firearms attorneys. I know I've met many more, so I don't want to say that there aren't others that are great, but truly Joshua Prince on the East Coast, he's phenomenal. And it's kind of funny, Brian, because when I first met him, the first question he asked me, and he is, "Are you a gun grabber?" And to give you an idea, like his office is like this renovated barn, and he has incredible firearms all over, just decorating his office, and it feels kind of like going into this kind of really cool bunker. And it's just a little bit intimidating. It was the first time I ever met him, and I was very passionate about this. I'm like, absolutely not. I said, I really think this is an opportunity that we can take leadership in our community to help people who need storage, who might not have friends or family who are able to help with that. And I see it as a way to help preserve rights, because if we can help people with giving them the tools to practice self-governance, I think that we have an opportunity to really push back on some of the legislative approaches that take away rights. So that's kind of how we got started with Hold My Guns. And that's a little bit about me. And I am very grateful for all of the life experiences that have led up to this point, the good ones and the heartache. And again, I just humbly serve in this way. And I hope that it inspires people to want to get involved and support our work, and also to be that person that people who need a friend can talk to as well.
Right. Yeah, because we never know when something's going to pop up in our life that really devastates us or impacts us. And we've talked briefly in the pre-show, I've been in the law enforcement and I've seen the actual effects going through seeing someone do that, as well as the after effects. And a lot of times, we don't. We may think we have things quote under control, but we really don't know. And that's where having people that like you guys, especially if you feel yourself coming onto a situation where, hey, I'm going into a deep hole and I may not need to have my gun with me, or it may need to be stored for a period of time while I get myself back together, or
Mhm.
either um, whatever it is, a move, or whatever. And I just think that being able to have somebody to talk to, having options available, making sure our loved ones and our friends know about these things that are available out there, to where if they see us tumbling, that they can, hey, you might want to go do this. It's like I went into work last night, and my supervisor, he said, "Are you okay? You look a little down." Which I was tired. Had a long
Right.
weekend. See, Friday I had at my local gun club. I did a bullseye pistol shoot, which I evening shoot, which I ran, and then Saturday I had a next steps, or a beginning firearms class that I taught in Jessup, and then Sunday, of course, getting back to work, and we also had the opening firearms hunting season in Georgia Saturday,
Mhm.
and we had the Lions Club Big Buck contest going on, and it was just a busy weekend. And
Busy, right? All good things, but it can just kind of make you tired, like you said.
yeah,
And so to have a friend just look out and be like, "Are you doing okay?" Like it's like, all right, I'll get you an extra cup of coffee or something.
right.
Like that is sound like you have a really great friend who
And
can
he's a
help.
military
Yeah.
veteran as well, so
Mhm.
he kind of feels, he knows that I'm military and law enforcement, and he's got the same thought. He's I want to make sure you're okay. Watch out. I've got your six. Watching out for you and stuff, which was very thoughtful. I thought, but yeah, we just don't know when something's going to happen, and we may not even realize it. But a lot of times, our facial and body language speaks tons, where we don't see that we're projecting it, but other people pick up on it real quickly.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Right to Bear is the leading self-defense legal protection you can count on if the moment comes to defend yourself or your families. Right to Bear provides the legal representation, expert witnesses, gun replacement, and even a 24-hour hotline for peace of mind exactly when you need it most. Sign up at protectwithbear.com and use promo code BTT to get 10% off. With Right to Bear, you'll never defend your freedoms alone again. Join now with the promo code BTT at protectwithbear.com.
Exactly. And I think that people have sometimes, because I also teach QPR, suicide prevention, in the firearms community, and I think that people have this idea of, you know, oh, like this person's in crisis or that person's in crisis, and I wish that more people realize that it's just kind of like all the little things that can add up sometimes, and it is a multifaceted risk that can happen. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we have to go around being, hyper vigilant of, are you okay all the time?
Right.
And the key is just to be familiar with the people around us and know each other's baselines. We all shoot together, so we're already kind of like out in the range and looking around and like, okay, like how are you doing today? And, there's just kind of that friendliness, which I love in our firearms community. But that means that we have a tremendous opportunity to just be real with people, and
Right.
and in a way that we can trust the people around us, which, again, I always want for people to be aware of who they're sharing personal information with. We
Right.
live in that kind of culture. But something I find about the beauty of our community is that people who have shared values have an understanding of, life's ups and downs and each other's wishes for how do I want to handle difficult days, right?
Right.
And so it's in the context of wanting to preserve rights and being respectful, but also really valuing life. We carry firearms to protect the people around us, to protect our family members, to protect ourselves because we value life. So it fits in beautifully to have a real conversation. We're always talking about, what do we do if there's a bad guy in the parking lot type thing? But, we really also need to examine our own life situations and what's going on in our home as part of our situational awareness too. And that's what really helps us to be good at self-defense too, making sure that our own minds and our own lives are in order in a way that prioritizes things and that we are able to get rest as much as we can. And being part of that lifestyle we have to take seriously carrying a firearm. So all of these things come into play. We do have a personal safety plan that's free that people can check out. And it basically outlines like, these are the things that I care about. Here are my preferred resources. Here's what I want to do with my firearms if I ever need to store them. And so having that plan helps people to be in the driver's seat and not just along for the ride. It helps people to practice self-governance. So I realized, Brian, we never really talked about what Hold My Guns does. We kind of jumped in. So if you don't mind, I'd love to share. So Hold My Guns is a 501c3 nonprofit. And which is important because we have a lot of friends that are doing more 501c4 work where it's more legislative advocacy and things like that. So, but as a 501c3, we're focused on community efforts, and we got our official status as a nonprofit in 2020 during SHOT Show. We got a letter from our email from our attorney, and it's like, wow, this is official. It was really cool. Just kind of a neat way that we found out about that it was official. And what we do is we partner with gun shops across the United States and we provide through them voluntary firearm storage, no questions asked during times of need. And, we talked a little bit about more of a mental health need, which actually only makes up a small fraction of our storage. A lot of people use our service because they're moving and they don't want firearms sitting in a hotel room or in their car. But while they're waiting to settle on their new house, people use our service if they're being deployed or if they're going to be away for an extended business trip. People use our service if they're going into a housing shelter, whether it's for homelessness or if someone is going into a domestic violence shelter and you can't take firearms with you oftentimes in those situations. So that empowers people to not have to choose between their personal security and getting into a safe shelter. So there are many uses. People have used our service if they have a foster child in the home, and there's some guidance around that, especially if the foster child is at risk, or if someone in the home becomes a prohibited person. And it's like, you don't want to kick out your son or daughter or your spouse, and you temporarily need to get firearms out of the home for those reasons. And I want to underscore that it might not be the gun owner who's having a hard time or going through things. It might be a household member or someone that is frequently over at the house. And some people don't store all of their firearms. Some people just store, the ones that might be more like around the house when the grandkids come over, but they still have their more of like personal defense firearm at, close by. So our goal is to support gun owners and provide this service, knowing that not everyone has friends or family who can help. And I'm just really encouraged to see how it really has come alongside of people in a way that they can practice self-governance. We have to have the tools to be able to do that. And the fact that it's coming from within our own community, with coming from trusted FFLs that care about their customers, it's a service that they can offer that genuinely is making a difference.
Right. Very great. So how does Hold My Guns make the difference in the community and with the industry?
Well, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's making a difference because it is helping people to make life-affirming choices and to practice self-governance. And I think that's really key. I do have a lot of friends who are more in the, I should say, like public health space, and a lot of people talk about firearm storage from a public health perspective. And I think coming from the firearms community, we have a liberty-based perspective that is, we certainly care about things that are involving health. And so I don't want to minimize that aspect of it. But what we care about is the preservation of rights and liberty, and what does a lifestyle of liberty look like. And when you have a public health approach, sometimes you have people in charge with very different views on liberty and on firearms, and they are writing policies that, might on one hand seem like, oh, we really care about people. But when you start to get into, where are the strings attached, and you learn that they're involved with gun control groups who have used firearm safety as a euphemism for, confiscating firearms, or red flag laws, or, trying to ban firearms, or that sort of a thing, and calling that a public health approach. I'm really leery of that. I think people in our community are too. So one of the ways that we can make a difference is to actually be helping people and putting the ball in their court, but providing the tools for them to be able to do that. So I think we have a unique opportunity here to take leadership in our community and say, like, not that we don't care about the health of the public, but we never want a public health approach to be weaponized to create laws that take away our rights that are preserved by the Second Amendment.
Right. And something I've also noticed or have found out, being in Georgia, that we kind of pretty are conservative as far as firearms and the transfer, storage, carrying. But you've got some states that you have to go through backgrounds. You have to have a card, or you have to have, quote, permission to be able to store a firearm on a home. And that's where I see your organization being extremely helpful for someone that may be going through a situation that they just can't give a relative or friend their firearm to hold for them without, in some of those states, being charged with a crime. And I'm just grateful for the things that you're putting in place, trying to expand your partners to storage partners, where it'll be more accessible for people to do that, getting the word out.
Exactly. And I do want to just touch on something that you mentioned. Because we're working with federal firearms licensees, they are required to do a transfer, because the firearms, they're transferring temporary possession. The gun owner is still the owner, but it goes in like a consignment or consignment return process. So because it goes into the acquisition and disposition logbook, it does have to go into that book, but its make, model, serial number, and the owner's contact information is the only information that's in there. But that being said, and because again, you're working in a regulated space, so it's a similar process as that consignment return. But we can also store non-serialized critical parts like a barrel or a firing pin, or even an accessory like a key to a gun lock. So there are a lot of options there. And if the FFL that we're working with has a locker service, that's another option, because in that case, the gun owner would simply be renting the locker and storing their items in there. The FFL is not touching them or logging them. And yet it is at a location that if something were to happen, that they still had the ability to transfer firearms, which is important because, again, life can be weird and you don't know, like if you end up in the hospital and, you need to transfer them to a non-prohibited third party because, for whatever reason, like things happen. So that's why we work with, if there is a locker service involved, they have to be attached to an FFL for that reason. But it is, an opportunity that people have to store a firearm or just a part, depending on what their needs are. And I agree with you. Like, every state, like you said, has different laws for what a transfer looks like. Sometimes there is a waiting period. Our Washington state partner, and I believe our Massachusetts one as well, has to work out around waiting periods. But that being said, we've had an opportunity to kind of push back on some of those things and challenge that, like, just to say, like, how are these pieces of legislation and this gun control, how is it creating an obstacle perhaps for people who need the service? And it's kind of changing the way people think about firearms storage, which is really exciting, I think, because if you can help people understand accessibility and to realize that some of the very pieces of legislation that were intended to help people are actually hindering people, with the majority of firearms related deaths being suicides, I think it's given a unique opportunity to help people to think through, is this really the path that we want to go? Because we're making it hard for people to get the help that they need. So, and again, we don't just store for mental health situations, but that seems to be the one that a lot of folks refer people who care about these things to Hold My Guns. So it's a good talking point.
Okay. Well, no, we've talked a little bit about the reasoning and the partners and everything. How do you vet your storage partners? What's their process if someone says, "Hey, I would like to be involved in this," but how do you guys go through making sure that they're legitimately doing what they're wanting to do and not something in disguise?
Well, a good thing is that they are coming from our community and they care about providing firearms for people and selling firearms and training people. And so it's not like we're just, going to someone that set up a building somewhere and said, like, I'll take your guns. They're people from within our own community. So I like already the self-selecting audience that we have are people who care about making sure people are armed. And so I love that. But we do go the extra mile. We do our homework on the FFLs that reach out to us. We look to see what their customer service rating is like, knowing that people can use the service for a variety of different reasons. We don't want to work with FFLs that have like a 1-star review where people say, if I could give them 0 stars, I would. This was terrible, So we look for good customer service. It's always a bonus if they have training at their location, because it shows that they care about education and they care about their customers. We require that our FFL partners have general liability insurance so that if anything were to happen to that firearm, that it would be covered by insurance. Like if it gets scratched or broken, I mean, firearms are investment. So we care about that. There is part of that process is that they have to go through our board and our board reviews, all the information they provide. We have a questionnaire, which you can find. Our social media is holdmyguns.org. And if you look in the link tree in the bio, there is a form for FFLs who are interested to let us know that they were interested in exploring to become a storage partner. So we ask some questions there. We prefer to work with a retail location just for safety purposes, although we do have a few partners who operate out of their homes, but out of like a separate business area in their home. And so we have to take things into consideration like that as well. And I think the biggest obstacle that we have right now is that because each state has nuanced laws, we have to ensure that the transfer process outlined in our contract is compliant. And so the process right now, we're working on streamlining it as we're growing, but the process is for an FFL that is from a state where we don't already have a contract, that they work with an attorney and help to fill in the specific transfer process so that it's transparent for the customer to be aware of. That's our biggest bottleneck. And because we're so small, we haven't been able to really offset the cost for that. And so all of our FFL partners so far have paid all of their own attorney fees to help create that compliant contract and write a letter to review it and say, this is compliant with our, my cat's knocking over the light. There we go. But anyway, they have graciously helped to cover those fees to show that their contract is compliant through an attorney license in their state. What we would love to see, and I'm so sorry I'm laughing. My cat Marcy literally just climbed up on my lap and knocked over the light. These things happen. Yeah. She's interested in something else now, as cats are. So forgive me for a second there. I was like, what's happening? But what we'd love to see is to be proactive about that and address this bottleneck as we get more funding, to be able to proactively go out and have contracts that are compliant in all 50 states. And that way we are reducing liability to our FFL partners who are interested in onboarding, and it helps to relieve some of that burden of having to find an attorney and create a contract and all that. So if all that to say is, if there is an FFL who's interested in becoming a partner who's in one of our existing 8 states, it's a lot easier at this point. Again, we don't have a lot of big funding yet.
Right.
But it's easier at this stage to onboard in a state where we already have a compliant contract. And that it's so tough because we have to be aware of compliance and we want to reduce liability, but it also creates a financial burden and more of an arduous process to onboard. But again, as we grow it's becoming more streamlined. So we're grateful for everyone that has come on board in this kind of I don't know, like a prototype type phase. And yet, even in that, we're still making a difference in helping people. So yes.
So how, for people that may be feeling that they need to utilize this service, and kind of briefly talked about this, how safe do they feel, or how can they feel safe about the storage partner that they are, okay, I've heard of this organization. I've heard that they do, have this partner that holds my gun, or for whatever reason. How, is this really safe? And I guess part of the question is, you have to do a little bit of your research on it, but with that dealer, that partner. But how do you guys help facilitate, or do you help facilitate somebody looking for a partner to store their guns and feel confident that, hey, I'm going to get them back as long as I'm not prohibited? But how does that kind of work? Do you guys do anything like that to help them calm their fears, I guess, is what something.
I love when people are skeptical of our work. And the reason why is because I love liberty. And I want for people to put their thinking caps on, no matter what they do in life, that they should consider, can I trust this this business or this organization or these people?
Right.
It might even be a new friend that you meet. You are wise about the information that you share. And I realize that, many people would answer this question with like, oh yeah, you can trust us, it's fine. But I have seen so many people misplace their trust in things that seem good. So I'm just going to be honest with you and say, always do your homework, because even if someone's gone through a vetting process, there can always still be something that happens. And so I'm not washing my hands of that, but I'm saying we've done our work because I really care about being able to trust people and recommending working with a particular FFL. And so for me, it's important that we kind of have that more rigorous vetting process where we're talking with them on the phone. If I can't go in person, we're looking at the shop like on camera. We examine their reviews and things like that. And they're also required to sign a contract with us that outlines, that they're using the service for lawful purposes, that they're going to have a good customer service. And there's like a process for what happens if things go sideways. And so we really have put a lot of due diligence, as much as it depends on us, to find partners that we would be comfortable with taking our own firearms to if we ever needed that. So, and my husband, for work has traveled overseas, and we've gone with him before and had to find a place for firearms. So I know that it's something that's very personal, and you want to make sure that it's in good hands. So we've really done our best to do that. But I would say, there's no harm in calling one of the gun shop partners. You can find the locations on our locations tab, holdmyguns.org, and look at the locations. You'll see a map there, and click on the one that's close to you and ask them questions. I'm interested in storing X number of firearms. Do you have space for that? Tell me a little bit about, tell me why I can trust you. Like, I want for people to ask questions. And the cool thing is that because we work with gun shops that have such great customer service, they're not going to be off put, and they'll actually be happy and understanding that people are asking those questions. And it's important to know that our partners, it's our policy never to ask why people are storing firearms. We know that, whether they're going to go on vacation with their family and they don't want their guns out sitting in the home, or if someone's going to be in the hospital for a bit, or if there's a mental health situation going on in the home, that for whatever reason that gun owner is being responsible to make sure that there's someone who it's not the gun owner is having access to those firearms. So we want to support responsibility, and we want to make sure that we respect privacy. And so there's no questions asked. And in fact, it might seem a little bit cold, Brian, but if someone does start to share a little bit about what's going on, our storage partners, the way that they handle that is very caring. And they may say something like, I really appreciate that you want to share this with me. I want to offer you this service, and I want to make sure that we don't cross any boundaries. I'm not a counselor, but here is a list of resources that are local that may be of help to you. And it might even be things like job resources, or how to find, like a local food pantry or things like that as well. Because again, it's people's risks in their lives are multifaceted. So it is a way that we can have a very kind and respectful distance and be able to provide this service. So people should know that too, that our storage partners care, but they are there to do their job of storing firearms. And we try to keep it like that. So respectful. And also we have a clause in our contract, or I guess, I don't know if clause is the right word, Brian, but that we respect privacy so much that if there were a court order, which is there's a limited scope to, what that would entail. We saw this recently with Liberty Safe. So everybody, I don't want to knock anybody, but things like that come up. And so I'm really grateful that our attorney, who cares about preserving rights, put that into the storage contract with customers, that if there's a court order, that the information about the customer would be sealed. And really, what is that information about the customer? It's what's in the logbook, make, model, serial number, and the name of the person. There's no information written down about why that firearm is being stored. So I hope that helps your listeners to have a better idea of what to expect from a Hold My Guns partner. And I would just invite anyone with any questions to reach out. You can do that at info@holdmyguns.org, and we're happy to answer your questions.
Okay, that sounds good. And I know that in the pre-show we talked about a person that's in your resources that I've had, was my first guest on the podcast, Walk the Talk America with Michael Sedini. And I really love what he's done, and the actual resources, that you can go to, and the wide gamut of self-service things that you can check on, depression, ADHD, all those different things that, it's good for us to recognize that, occasionally we need to, just check ourselves, and that there's a way that we can do it that doesn't infringe on our Second Amendment rights, because they don't ask questions like, how many guns you have and stuff like that. And I'm glad to see that you kind of partnered with him, or as far as resources, and see that you've got a a couple good ones, the suicide prevention hotline and the Veterans Crisis Hotline, and the Project Child Safe, which is another thing that children and firearms, educating them. Number one, I think, is primary if you're going to have firearms in the house with children, but being responsible about it, and knowing that child is inquisitive. They like to pick up things when they find them, and
they are. Yes. We love Project Child Safe and National Shooting Sports Foundation. I think they've done a tremendous job to educate gun owners about kids and firearms, and I'm just really grateful. Again, we're very blessed with a great community. Another resource on there is Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. They're kind of under the umbrella of the Second Amendment Foundation, and I'm Robert Young and John Adine and many others are part of that group. And again, like, we always want to make sure that when we're going to seek help from a medical or mental health professional, because they are people who potentially, they have the ability to report and authoritatively, and we want to make sure that we have shared values. In fact, I actually switched pediatricians when my kids were younger, because we had a pediatrician that asked, they kind of, when I was not in the room for a moment, they were talking to my kids about guns. And then I walked back in with I had to take another kid out to use the bathroom. And when I came back in, this was the conversation that I walked into. And so every appointment after that became a conversation, very confrontational about firearms, and we switched practices. So I encourage people to know who you're talking to about firearms, know what their the authority that they have to report, and to be very wise with what you share. And we want people to get help, but we want for people to use resources that genuinely care. So, and care about the preservation of rights as much as they care about their patients and clients too. So we love Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership. And you had mentioned Walk the Talk America, which empowers people to, again, like you mentioned, like, just to check in on themselves. How am I doing? And it empowers them to seek help if they need it. So yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, if somebody has some questions that we didn't cover, or interested in finding out more on how they can help, support, donate, or whatever, how can they reach out to Hold My Guns?
Well, info@holdmyguns.org is the best email for us. It goes to our whole team of volunteers, and our website is holdmyguns.org. There is a spot on there to donate. And as we are getting close to 2024, we are looking for donations to make our work possible as we move forward, and to onboard we'd love to have gun shop partners in all 50 states. So part of that is we would love to see some partnerships with some maybe manufacturers, whether they're in the firearms community or adjacent to it, like the outdoors community or whatnot. But there's a tremendous opportunity to really show that you care about this issue in a way that preserves rights. So we are just excited to be in the space. We'll be at SHOT Show. We're at booth, I think it's 41167. And it'll be our second year there with a booth, although we've been there a couple of years in a row now. So if you're going to be at SHOT, come look us up and come by and say hello. And I'm trying to think if there's our social media that we're on is Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook and Telegram. So if you're on any of those platforms, please give us a follow. And let us know if you'd like to get involved, whether you're an FFL partner. There's in the bio for our social media, there's a link tree, and you can sign up to become an FFL partner. You can sign up to be a volunteer and to get on our newsletter as well. So we really appreciate people's interest in this important life-saving mission.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Sarah, for your time and for coming on. I know we we struggled trying to connect and find the time with your busy schedule. I know you had the USCCA and a couple other things that were going on, and this was the first chance that we had to connect, and I'm glad that we did. And I'd love to have you back on a future episode to discuss it more and hopefully see more expanded options for people in states that maybe you've been searching for, and try to get in place, and hopefully we can help spread the word for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's good to be here today.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a part of the podcast, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks. You too.
Hi, this is Brian, host of the Armed Guardian podcast and owner of Blueberry Tactical and Training. While we were looking to find a official drink for both the company and the podcast, we searched for several different types of drinks, and we have come to find Blackout Coffee is a drink that we can put our trust into. It's a coffee with values. It's coffee that's more than just a coffee company. They're a purpose-driven company that acknowledges the people and the traditions that make our country great. They're known for supporting the traditional American values, military, first responders, and hardworking people all across America. Blackout Coffee was founded on the principles of conservative values. Founders believe in the importance of hard work, personal responsibility, family, respect, and traditional American values. So, Armed Guardian Podcast and Blueberry Tactical are proud to make Blackout Coffee our official drink for the podcast and our business. So, in the link below in our show notes, if you don't mind visiting, check out them. They also have teas and cocos that are available if you prefer those, but check them out. There's a link in the show notes, and there's also a coupon code for 10% off your first order. So check out Blackout Coffee and enjoy their drink. Hi, this is Brian, host of the Armed Guardian podcast and owner of Blueberry Tactical and Training. While we were looking to find a official drink for both the company and the podcast, we searched for several different types of drinks, and we have come to find Blackout Coffee is a drink that we can put our trust into. It's a coffee with values. It's coffee that's more than just a coffee company. They're a purpose-driven company that acknowledges the people and the traditions that make our country great. They're known for supporting the traditional American values, military, first responders, and hardworking people all across America. Blackout Coffee was founded on the principles of conservative values. The founders believe in the importance of hard work, personal responsibility, family, respect, and traditional American values. So, Armed Guardian Podcast and Blueberry Tactical are proud to make Blackout Coffee our official drink for the podcast and our business. So, in the link below in our show notes, if you don't mind visiting, check out them. They also have teas and cocos that are available if you prefer those, but check them out. There's a link in the show notes, and there's also a coupon code for 10% off your first order. So check out Blackout Coffee and enjoy their drink.